How did your work as Secretary of Agriculture, if I can say the word, benefit Kansas?
Well, first of all, Dole and Roberts made sure that it benefited Kansas every single day, And in fact, there were a lot of people who thought that Kansas got preferred treatment. God forbid that would have happened under our leadership. But, we did a lot of stuff, not only in terms of the commodities in Kansas, wheat, corn, livestock, but also hunger, food stamps, issues that Dole particularly was interested in. He was the leader in the effort to build the modern food stamp, or now they call it SNAP program. He knew that it would help, it was the right thing to do. He came from poverty and had bouts of hunger when he was a kid during the Depression. And so he learned that you could do both. You could be an advocate for the farmer, but you could be the advocate for hungry people as well. And that started a coalition that we still have today between urban and interests, and not just urban, because a lot of rural folks are suffering as much as urban folks are, and the farmers. And so that was a real positive part of the job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to switch. One of the things we try to do is kind of long form, and it gives us a little time to get into stuff in more depth, but your career is so impressive that I'm going to have to kind of skip around rather quickly. But one of the things I really wanted you to speak to tonight, Secretary Glickman, is your time running the Institute of Politics at the Kennedy School at Harvard. That's, I believe, where we first met. I was visiting while you were director.
And you were a fellow there.
I was a fellow there in 91, yeah. That's correct. Tell us about your time there. How did you get selected, and kind of what was it like?
It's like everything in life. It's kind of, somebody called me up and said the director was leaving. It was David Pryor. He was the senator from Arkansas. And so the Kennedy family, after John Kennedy died, created a fund, and they raised $30 million to build an institute at Harvard for political dialogue, very much similar to the Dole Institute. Half the money went to build the library, and a lot of you have probably been to the Kennedy Library itself. And half the money went into this institute that was largely geared to undergraduate students to help them build an interest in politics, doing a lot of the exact same things that you do here. And that $15 million, compound interest is a wonderful thing in life, because that $15 million grew to about $115 million. They may have gotten some additional outside money, but most of it was internally generated, and that produced an institute that did a lot of great things, and we didn't have to raise a lot of money, which was a terrific thing, So the $3 or $4 million a year in interest was enough to fund the operation, to have the programs, to have the speakers. They had the Harvard Forums, which is one of the largest lecture series in the world. They had Pizza and Politics, student activity centers, exactly what you're doing here. And, and I got to tell people I got admitted to Harvard. The truth of the matter is I applied to Harvard as a high school graduate, a senior. And I think my application got rejected even before it was received. And so I figured this is the way to get into Harvard. And I got into Harvard, and I enjoyed it. But then I got this opportunity to go to the Motion Picture Association, and we can talk about that if you want to. But I left a little bit premature in order to take that job.
Right. One of the things before we go to your Hollywood job, how did your time at the Motion Picture Association compare to politics?
It's so much tougher than politics. You can't believe it. I worked for the studio heads, and so personally, they all hoped that each other would fail every week, because the movies would come out on Friday or Saturday, and a movie might cost $150 million to make and market, and they were all having competitive movies, and there was tension, and I was the guy that was supposed to herd these cats around to make sure that they kind of loved each other. It's different than politics. Politics is tough, But in some sense, I think it was Valenti or someone says, Hollywood is Washington on steroids. And the stakes are very high. It's money, it's prestige, it's power. So it was a much tougher job than anything I did in politics.